There's still a lot of reputable people who are high on Nussmeier, but it's becoming harder and harder to defend him after his recent performances. He still has nice tools as a pocket passer, but to succeed in the NFL as a pocket passer, you need to be able to maneuver well in the pocket to avoid pressure and make good decisions with the ball, and he's failed to do either for a long time now. It was just a huge bummer after it looked like Rourke was going to be able to put himself in Indiana national spotlight as a serious threat and dangerous offense that could go toe-to-toe with any playoff team. Instead, it just kind of created questions about how good Rourke truly is and how good this offense really is. With the receiver class this year being pretty unimpressive past Teteroa McMillan, Travis Hunter, Luther Burn III, and Emeka Ibuka, Patrick's a big-time sleeper who could really surprise people. Hey y'all, back with the usual watch list video. This week I'll again be covering my usual 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends to watch this weekend. As always, I have the players included in the video, but if you prefer to just read through the players instead, you can read them in my Substack article in the description. You can also subscribe to my Substack if you want to keep up with the written articles. You can also subscribe to this channel if you want to stay up to date on these videos. So let's go through the watch list for this weekend. For the first quarterback I'll be watching Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Nussmeier has been in a bit of a freefall this past month or so. After a solid start to the season with just some areas to clean up, he has started to look like a quarterback who isn't catching up to the adjustments and more complicated defenses that he's been facing lately. A fair amount of struggles do have to do with his offensive line having more struggles and his receivers having some difficulties separating, but Nussmeier has also been forcing things way too often and has been making some really wild decisions at times. There's still a lot of reputable people who are high on Nussmeier, but it's becoming harder and harder to defend him after his recent performances. Honestly, at this point, I think he's kind of trending towards need to return to school if he continues to struggle like this. He still has nice tools as a pocket passer, but to succeed in the NFL as a pocket passer, you need to be able to maneuver well in the pocket to avoid pressure and make good decisions with the ball, and he's failed to do either for a long time now. I was hoping that Nussmeier would be able to turn around against Florida last weekend, but he instead had a very poor game again. Maybe he turns around this weekend, but I feel like we just continue to be in this waiting game, hoping that things finally click for him and the offense again. That being said, I'm a sucker for punishment, so I'll be watching Nussmeier this weekend against Vanderbilt to see if he's closer to the player that he was to start the year. So be sure to check out Garrett Nussmeier this Saturday when he takes on Vanderbilt at 7:45 p.m. Eastern. The other quarterback I'll be watching this weekend is Kurtis Rourke from Indiana. Rourke in Indiana had a big game last week against Michigan, and he looked fantastic in the first half. And then the second half happened, and things got really messy. After completing 14 of his 18 passes for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half, Rourke struggled the rest of the game and only managed to complete just 3 of his remaining 10 passes while also throwing an interception. It was just a huge bummer after it looked like Rourke was going to be able to put himself in Indiana national spotlight as a serious threat and dangerous offense that could go toe-to-toe with any playoff team. Instead, it just kind of created questions about how good Rourke truly is and how good this offense really is. Hopefully the team and the coaching staff learned their lesson last weekend and will be more consistent for the entire game this weekend. Rourke and the team will need to be on their A game for the whole 60 minutes this weekend when they take on number 2 ranked Ohio State. It's such a big opportunity for not just the team to increase their chances of securing a first-round bye in the college football playoffs, but also for Rourke to show NFL teams that he has what it takes to beat high-quality opponents. It isn't just a quarterback beating up on weaker teams. If the team does lose and Rourke struggles, the team will be okay, as I believe they would still be projected to make the playoffs, but it would put even more pressure on Rourke to deliver in the playoffs to get a serious shot at being considered by NFL teams. Also, I think it'll just be interesting to see if Indiana finally does break their 29-game losing streak to Ohio State and finally does manage to beat them for the first time in 30 years. So be sure to watch Kurtis Rourke and Indiana travel to number 2 ranked Ohio State this Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern to see if Rourke is able to have a good performance all game and see if Indiana can finally break that losing streak. Moving to running backs, I'll be watching Skattebo from Arizona State this weekend. Skattebo was a player I watched a bit last year in his first season at Arizona State, and I thought he was a solid player, but nothing special, which caused me not to pay too much attention to him for the start of this season. However, this year, after getting a chance to watch him more, he's been a lot tougher to bring down while still getting a chance to show off his great hands and ability to help as a receiver. For me, I still just have questions about whether he has the burst and athleticism to be a top back for an NFL team, but he is undoubtedly fun to watch. Maybe he is never a lead back, but I do see a player who could be a good contributor if he's able to eventually help as a pass blocker, and depending on how exactly he's able to test athletically, since that could impact how NFL teams view him. So for the time being, until we get clearer answers to those questions, I'll start to give him more of my attention and see how he performs and if he can continue to look like a bell cow back who can handle most of what the offense asks of him. Speaking of watching him, this weekend will be a great opportunity to watch him as he'll take on number 14th ranked BYU in a tough matchup. BYU may not be as good as their record and rank indicate, but they are still a tough team and should pose a good challenge for Arizona State and Skattebo. So be sure to watch Skattebo take on number 14th ranked BYU this Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. For the other running back I'll be watching this weekend, I'll be watching DJ Giddens from Kansas State. I didn't plan for Garrett Nussmeier and DJ Giddens to both be on this list for this reason, but it is convenient since both have had somewhat similar years. Like Nussmeier, Giddens had a good start to the year, but has struggled for the past month. For the past few weeks, Giddens has reverted to his bad habits of running too upright and being indecisive, which led him to some of his worst performances of the season. Now the good thing is, in his most recent game against Arizona State last week, he had one of the better games of the season, but again, it just kind of shows the frustrating part of trying to be a believer in Giddens. I think I've mentioned this comp before during my summer scouting, but there's so much about Giddens that is similar to Buccaneers running back Rachaad White, since both can do it all on the ground and help in the receiving game, and have the talent to be top backs but fluctuate bad tendencies that hold them back from reaching their true potential. I just really want to see more consistency from Giddens and to stop being teased with his potential. I think those flashes and teases will make him really difficult to evaluate in my final rankings, and I'll be interested to see if a team falls in love with his flashes and if they can work out his bad habits. So again, with me being a sucker for punishment, I'll be watching to see which DJ Giddens we get this weekend. Will we get the Giddens that looks like one of the better backs in this class, or will we get the Giddens who looks like he's lost and much smaller than he truly is? Either way, be sure to watch Giddens take on Cincinnati this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Going to wide receivers, I'll be watching Jayden Higgins from Iowa State. Higgins has been Mr. Consistency this season, having less than 5 receptions and 60 yards in just one game this year, and finishing with a touchdown in over half of his games. He's proven himself as a favorite target quarterback Rourke, and he could do the same in the NFL as the team's number 2 receiver. While the production has been great to see, the team still hasn't had that difficult of a schedule, which makes me question what Higgins can truly do against top talent. Now it's great that Higgins has proven that he can produce against less than great defenses, but it'll be interesting to see what Higgins, and for that matter the whole Iowa State offense, can do in the playoffs. That being said, Higgins has stepped up against tougher defenses that he's faced this season, like Iowa and Houston, but it'll be also very important to prove himself in the tough matchups coming up in this final stretch of the season. The gauntlet for Higgins starts this weekend when the team takes on Utah, after Utah was able to slow down Travis Hunter last week. So it'll be interesting to see if Utah is one of the few teams that's also able to slow down Higgins. So be sure to watch Higgins play Utah this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern and to see what he's capable of. For my other wide receiver, as the president of his fan club, I'll be watching Elijhah Badger from Florida. If anyone's followed me for some time, they probably heard me gush about Elijhah Badger. He suffered from poor quarterback play for most of his college career, but he's an extremely underrated player and athlete. At Arizona State, he was primarily used in short passing concepts due to limited quarterback play there, but he was a fluid and explosive athlete who proved he can provide a lot of yards in yak situations. Now that he's at Florida, he's actually been used in the exact opposite role and has been used more as an intermediate and deep threat, seeing his ADOT jump from 7.3 in 2023 all the way to 18.7 this year. So it's just really great to see that Badger proved he can excel at whatever is asked of him. Also, it's really great to see him finally show a connection with freshman quarterback DJ Lagway last week against LSU, putting up 6 receptions for 131 yards and a touchdown. Now, LSU's defense, and particularly the passing defense, has been suspect this year, but it was still great to see. With the receiver class this year being pretty unimpressive past Teteroa McMillan, Travis Hunter, Luther Burn III, and Emeka Ibuka, Badger is a big-time sleeper who could really surprise people. This week, Badger may have a much tougher time when the team takes on number 9th ranked Ole Miss. I think some of the other matchups this weekend have been getting more attention, but I think this could be a really underrated and fun game to watch. And if nothing else, I'll just be excited to watch my boy Badger against a good team. So be sure to watch Badger and see if you want to join the Badger fan club with me when he plays Ole Miss this Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Finishing things off with tight ends, I'll be watching Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame this weekend. I came into the season with pretty high expectations for Evans after he looked really good last year before tearing his ACL. Unfortunately, the start of this year has been rough for him, and quarterback Riley Leonard sometimes struggling to pass the ball also didn't help. That being said, the past few weeks have been a bit more encouraging for Evans. He still doesn't quite look all the way back, but he does look a bit closer to where he was last year, and he's been able to help a little bit more in the passing game. I still think that Evans is likely trending towards returning to school for another year to have a fully healthy season and to show the impact that he's capable of providing a team. But if he does have a strong finish to the year, I would definitely keep an open mind and be very interested to see if he does end up declaring. So I'll be interested to see if Evans can continue his trajectory and see how he looks this weekend when the team takes on number 19th ranked Army. Like BYU, Army probably isn't as good as their record and rank indicate, but it'll still be a good test for Evans. So be sure to watch Evans take on number 19th ranked Army this Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. The final tight end for this week was admittedly difficult to decide on, with a lot of tight ends either having very easy matchups that didn't interest me, or just teams being on bye. So I ended up going with the tight end who I'm a bit lower on, but someone who will be interesting to watch as a 2026 player, Endries from Cal. As I mentioned, I think Endries is still a project and needs further development, but the versatility he shows and the potential is nice. He can be used all over the formation and can also be helpful in the receiving game thanks to his great hands. The problem with Endries is I just don't think he excels at anything other than catching the football right now, and will need to work on his polish to further establish his versatility. If he does that, I think he could be a really exciting tight end for a team if he does declare for the 2026 NFL Draft next year. For now though, I'll see if he develops faster than I expect and see how he performs against Stanford this weekend. Now Stanford isn't a tough team, but like I said, my options were pretty limited and I want to at least highlight Endries and also pick a team that wasn't playing an FCS level school. So be sure to check out Endries take on Stanford this Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And that does it for the players for week 13. We now have just one more week of a full schedule of games next week, so that might be the last watch list video for this season. I'm considering doing one for the conference games, or at the very least the bowls and playoff games, but to be sure that you don't miss that, and to keep up with the players you should be watching, be sure to subscribe. While you're at it, like the video as it would help the channel and the series grow thanks to you. If you want just a written form of the basics of the players to watch, you can again subscribe to my Substack. But thank you all and see you all next time.